Husband moved his siblings and a new care team into our house without warning, stealing our privacy and future plans, driving us toward divorce. Husband and I have been married for 5 years. For some context, his siblings, twins, M.F., early 20, are underdeveloped physically and mentally. They can take care of themselves as far as wiping themselves, going to the bathroom and feeding themselves, but they are rather weak, having brittle and fragile bones, and combined with their mental maturity, which is similar to that of about a 12 to 13-year-old, they have to be monitored, cooked for, assisted with going upstairs, moving around for long distances, etc. They can't take care of themselves financially because of all this. All of this I knew while we were dating, but they were being cared for by a team of nurses and caregivers at that time, not in our home. But about a few months ago, the team was all fired. My husband told me that he was planning to move them in, and about a week or so later, they were moved in, along with a new team. I had no say or even much of a heads up about any of it. The house suddenly became full of staff, someone was always there. Our privacy was basically snatched away. My husband already has a busy schedule, he's a doctor, on call a lot, and now I feel like we barely have time to ourselves. I'm competing with everything and everyone. We were about to start a family now that we were all settled, things were good between us, but now everything has been thrown into chaos, and I don't know how to feel. I feel almost a sense of grief. I feel like I have no control of anything. I feel like he just threw away our future and plans, as cruel as that may sound. We had a talk and everything was pointing toward a divorce, but I just feel so bitter. I feel like he's just giving up. He feels like I'm not being thoughtful enough. I love him more than anything and want to salvage our marriage if I can, before just making any snap decisions. Any advice is appreciated. Update 1. After taking everyone's thoughts into consideration and taking some time to myself to think, I sat down with my husband when he was off call and told him I wanted to talk about everything that's happened. He told me that he wanted to talk too, and we had a raw heart-to-heart about everything. We discussed the main issue that I mentioned in my previous post. I told him that I felt hurt about him not consulting or even telling me about what was going on, and he sincerely apologized for it, telling me that he wasn't thinking about much else other than their situation, which I understood, even if it still made me feel a certain way. But then he told me that he needed to be honest to me about something, and that he understood that it may affect things between us, but that the whole situation with his siblings and their previous care team made him realize it even more. He became very blunt. He told me that while he loves me more than anything, he loves them more, and that he has to put them first from now on, above anything. He told me that he couldn't handle anything else happening, and that everything he's done, the cameras, moving in the staff, was necessary. And while this of course hurt for me to hear, even though, I understand, like I have for this whole situation, I realized some things. He might have acted selfishly at first, even if it was understandable, but my reaction could have been better, I admit. He was breaking down right in front of me, reliving trauma that reminded him of his childhood, and I was too busy in my own feelings to offer any true support. I felt awful about that. I didn't mention much of it in the previous post, but his parents were truly awful people. Their neglect caused the undeveloped/regress state of the twins in the first place, and if he hadn't taken care of them while they were small, they possibly wouldn't have survived. They're very attached to him, almost like a small child with their parent. As painful as it was, I accepted that I couldn't come before their relationship. I did know about his legal obligation before we became married, so I obviously knew they were important to him. I have no bitter feelings toward the two. They're innocent in this situation and are very precious in their ways in general. As far as our future plans, we agreed that we'd wait a few years, 3 at the max, before truly deciding if we wanted to have a child or not. We were on the fence, but I was falling in love with the idea of motherhood perhaps more than I realized. He was also very receptive about having designated areas that were staff only and me only. It's already been implemented a bit, with still more things to out in place, and I'm feeling a lot better about that already. And lastly, I realize that this may seem like the fool's option to some, to the many who jump straight to divorce, but now I know of all the facts and where he stands, so anything that may happen from now will be completely on me. I feel hopeful in my decision, and I'm not wanting to give up. For him, and the marriage that I still value so much, I am willing to give it a try and try to adjust to our new normal. Thank you to everyone who helped me. Final edit. Thank you everyone. I'm logging out from this account now. I appreciated some of the advice more than others, but everyone's opinions were still read. Overall, I am content with my decision and am looking forward to seeing what the future might bring for us. Whether we have children or not, with the resources that we have, I am sure we will work things out. We both know where the other stands, and what we've gotten into. Update 2. I was always a bit of a fence-sitter when it came to having children. Throughout my life, I went through phases of knowing for sure that I wanted children, to suddenly being uncertain, and suddenly not wanting to become a mother at all. My life, honestly, was pretty uneventful. I saw the women in my community having children, and began to soon fall in love with the prospect of motherhood, as it seemed exciting and appeared to give women, who chose to become mothers, a purpose. Everyone else seemed to be sure, but I couldn't understand why I wasn't. I married my husband, 39 now, 7 years ago. He is a successful, well-off doctor with a deep connection to his siblings, more on that later. Marrying him was the happiest day of my life. I'm absolutely in love with him. His job keeps him busy, but also because of his job I have the privilege to stay at home and pursue whatever I want. I did some small online work, but ultimately I was a stay-at-home wife, which I enjoy. After marriage, we still waited a bit before deciding to have children. He has a legal and moral responsibility to his siblings, twins M.F. who are now early mid-20s, but I wasn't concerned about this when it came to us possibly having a child. Seeing how he is with them, his love and sacrifice, along with his dedication to his responsibilities and to me was confirmation that he was already a great, selfless father. As I mentioned earlier, he is their legal guardian, and has been since he was 18 years old. But he has essentially been their caretaker since birth, due to extreme neglect/abuse towards them from the ones who birthed him. If it wasn't for him, quite literally, they would not have survived. He is their father in everything but the biological sense, and they are quite literally children due to being made disabled from the abuse both physically, small, thin bodies and very fragile bones due to stunted growth, and mentally, brain development-wise. They are around 12-13 mentally. Very intelligent as kids that age are, but not able to take care of themselves and still need supervision, to be cooked for, and help with movement like going upstairs and walking or standing long distances. About 3 years ago we were coming to a decision on children. I was getting older, 32, now almost 35, and knew that if I wanted children I had to make a quick decision. I thought about it. Honestly, I went back and forth a little, but shortly after a mutual friend had a baby, I fell in love with motherhood again. But before we could plan, a drastic change occurred, involving his siblings. Due to criminal mistreatment by the care team that had been caring for them, my husband abruptly moved them into the home without so much as talking to me. It was thoughtless mistake on his part that I ultimately came to understand, but I frantically came to post about it on this site nearly 2 years ago, on another subreddit, in a panic about suddenly our lives being thrown away, was in a more emotional state of mind back then, with all the clock running out thoughts in my head of what I thought I wanted. I realize now that it was not the best move, considering people couldn't fully grasp the full nature of our relationship, his relationship with the twins, or the complexity that couldn't be fully described without telling intimate parts of their backstory. I was called a lot of hateful names, idiot, stupid, and told I had no self-respect and would be miserable and bitter for making a choice for myself that didn't involve hasty divorce and took a more compassionate route. That they knew for certain that things wouldn't work out for us and couldn't wait to read again about how they were right in a few years. My husband was accused of being a manipulator, a monster, and selfish. I honestly wasn't expecting such harsh, cruel, and ableist comments, even towards the twins. He even admitted that not informing me was wrong, apologized, accommodated me in my established boundaries involving the twin staff and designated areas of the house I wanted to keep private, and explained his reasoning without being dismissive. He went into protective/fixer mode. It was an emergency, trauma flashbacks, etc. It was not malicious, even though it was inherently disrespectful. And more importantly, it was not a pattern of behavior common of him at all. But apparently that wasn't enough for the people on the post, especially the fact that we agreed to wait on the topic of children for 2 to 3 years to see if I could adjust to this new normal, or whether it would /be best for us to split ways, because he was going to prioritize his siblings if it came to it. This took a bit of a toll on our marriage, but neither of us wanted to give up on each other so easily. On the other hand, I hadn't been completely honest. I left out important information and took a naive approach to things he had told me regarding the twins' role in his life. He had told me before marriage that he was their legal guardian and how important they were to him, and that he would always be their father. I knew this, but took his words as more surface level than seriously reflecting on what they meant. He had also told me that the plan wasn't to leave them out of the home for long. The care team at the separate house was only temporary due to a certain circumstance, but again I didn't properly reflect on what this could mean for the future. After the incident had occurred and the big change had happened, we had a raw, open talk, and he bluntly told me that they were his top priority, and considering he is like their father, I accepted that fact. It was a bit shocking at first, until my counselor, and a few helpful people from the post, told me I essentially got into a marriage with a man already with children, and had seemingly ignored the fact. Something changed in me. I saw the love differently, and could understand why they were first. A few months passed, then a year. Since then, we have been to marriage counseling, though working around his schedule is crazy, a few vacations, some with just us, and some with the siblings, and are in a much better place. We have evenings out and time to ourselves when it allows. The adjustment at first was difficult, but it was not as life-ending as I had been led to believe. The desire for a child, for one reason or another, naturally started to fade. Even though the twins have full-time, around-the-clock care from the in-home nursing team, I started gradually spending time with them. Sitting with them at breakfast. Going out into the gardens with them. Doing puzzles with them, listening to them as they talk to me about their favorite things, and how much they love their father. Something happened that I never thought would. I started to fall in love with them in a maternal sense. I am ashamed to say it, but I was skeptical that it was possible to grow such an attachment to older children that weren't your own. Or to anyone that wasn't your spouse or actual children. I used to feel like I had no purpose. Even after marrying my husband, I couldn't decide what I wanted. Maybe that was why I waited so long into my 30s. My counselor also put an interesting thought in my head. Do you really want children, or are you looking for a purpose? As I said, my life used to be pretty uneventful. But now I am so passionate about things such as disability awareness, child abuse awareness, and have gotten involved with so many foundations. With our wealth, I feel like I can actually do something, and I have wanted to be a children's book author. The twins really enjoy children's books more so than chapter books. My husband and I have grown closer through our love for them. I may not be their mother, but I really do care for them. I don't have many conflicting thoughts about children anymore. I don't think I want any at all, and the feeling of indifference has been there consistently for a while now. I know some people will probably still think I'm an idiot or that I was manipulated to now caring for them, even though they have staff, or this was his plan all along or something. He never asked me to, and still doesn't fully trust the staff, hence why we still have cameras in their designated areas where they frequent with the twins. But I am truly happy with my life now, and see a bright future for us all. I never thought I would log back into this account. I forgot about it for a while. This is not a gloating or gotcha thing for me. I understand that some people were generally trying to help, give tough love, or were trying to look out for me. I was inspired to share this on this site, for the last time, to give my own perspective. Motherhood and love is something I was so uppity about. But it comes in many forms. I saw it further through a mutual friend's adoption of 2 older children, 12 and 7. As women, whether you have kids or not, if there's no sense of purpose within you, it won't bring happiness. For some women, the kids are the purpose, and it makes them happy. For other women, being single and enjoying their life and their hobbies and relationships is their purpose. I don't believe having kids would have made me happy or brought me a purpose, like I used to think. The people that everyone told me would ruin me actually opened me up to my purpose, all without having to go through a risky pregnancy, possible postpartum depression, and the stress. I just want to be with my husband, the twins, and continue to have a nice life. Thank you for anyone who read to the end. This is more of a vent, and hopefully can be uplifting to women out there who might be struggling with thoughts of motherhood, kids, marriage, purpose, or self-confidence. Don't ever allow others' assertions to shape your life. I'm so glad I didn't fall into the reality that everyone had tried to push me into. Update 3. I truly didn't expect to be writing another update, but a staggering amount happened this past year that even now feels like I'm living someone else's life. Buckle up, this is wild, beautiful, exhausting, and somehow where I was meant to end up all along. So much has changed, but I can say, and my counselor agrees, that none of it would have been possible if I hadn't allowed myself to grow beyond my earlier rigidity about what happiness, motherhood, and purpose are supposed to look like. Let's cut right to it. This past spring, we experienced a crisis that turned out to be transformative, both practically and emotionally. The twins were both hospitalized after a series of falls. Don't worry, they are both fine now, I promise. I wouldn't bury the lead if they weren't okay. The reason is where things get complicated. The care team we hired quietly started substituting staff, and the quality of care plummeted. My husband, already hypervigilant, started noticing more bruises, tiredness, and withdrawal in the twins. He escalated, auditing security footage, and let's just say what we found sickened both of us. Nothing grossly abusive, but staff simply not supporting their weight when walking, leaving them at the edges of rooms unattended for long stretches, and rough handling that could have turned disastrous. For the first time, I was more than the spouse trying to manage boundaries or stress. I was as angry and immediately protective as my husband. Together, we fired the entire agency overnight, pulled legal help, and moved back into crisis mode, with me and my husband splitting shifts at the hospital. I can't describe how it felt when my husband looked over at 3 a.m. with the twins asleep and whispered, "Not many would stay." This strangely broke something open in us. We fell in love all over again. He trusted my judgment completely for the first time, and I realized I had stopped resenting the way the twins had changed our plans. This was our real life, and I genuinely wanted to be there for it. Here's where it gets crazier. In the wake of this, through connections with my husband's colleagues, we found a newer, smaller care company run by the sibling and parent of 2 adults with similar disabilities, people whose empathy and advocacy were lived, not performed. The difference was instant. The twins flourished with staff who treated them like people, not chores. I watched the staff member painstakingly describe a chess move to M. I watched F choose her own outfits every day. It felt like our house was alive, not occupied. If you can believe it, the twins themselves changed. With better care, safer transfers, and staff willing to work with occupational therapists, their mobility and confidence noticeably improved. It sounds made up, but watching F initiate a trip up the garden path, her first time walking that stretch with only the new staff and me, made me tear up. She saw my face, grinned, and offered me a high five. I cracked up right there, because all the doom-laden predictions commenters made for my marriage and my stepfamily, none came close to this moment. But with trauma comes clarity. My husband, previously so hesitant to allow anyone near the core of his family responsibility, opened up, too. We started inviting friends over. He even agreed, on the twins' request, to allow my parents, who live out of state, to visit for the summer. I was terrified. My parents were always skeptical, and we have never completely seen eye to eye. Surprise, they fell in love with the twins. My dad now sends F a crossword every week. My mom texts me recipes for snacky lunches she thinks M will enjoy, For the first time since my wedding, I felt like our families were integrated, instead of parallel, polite, but forever separate entities. There's a plot twist I never saw coming. 2 months ago, the twins' birth parents, who have been legally estranged since the guardianship trial years ago and not in our lives at all, reached out through intermediaries. They are elderly, unwell, and claim they want to make amends. My husband was torn. He hadn't spoken of them in years, and their neglect nearly killed the twins. But the twins asked questions about them for the first time ever after overhearing a conversation. After months of therapy appointments prepping, and ensuring everyone was safe and had control, the twins met their birth parents in a protected, short session at a therapist's office. I expected drama or heartbreak. Instead, the twins were curious, polite, sometimes nervously giggly. The parents were awkward, stiff, and overcompensated, but it was not traumatic. Almost a fizzle instead of a bomb. After, F said, "I'm glad I met them. But I like my family better." That was that. I have no idea what happens next, but it felt less like a shadow over us and more like an affirmation of the family we built. On the everyday front, my role keeps evolving. My children's book dream is now real. I wrote, illustrated, and self-published a book based on conversations with the twins about what it feels like to be different, and how invisible disabilities can be misunderstood. A local disability nonprofit asked me to do a reading at their event, which led to me being involved with 2 new organizations, and now I'm putting together a group to advocate for accessible home design statewide. Yes, me, the fence sitter, now on the city council's radar for disability policy. Sometimes I look in the mirror and genuinely don't recognize myself, but in the best possible way. Marriage-wise? We're in the most honest, passionate place we've ever been. We had a vow renewal, tiny, just us and the twins, and our new staff, in the garden. My husband gave an impromptu toast that ended with, "This family is a gift I almost missed because I was so afraid of losing what I thought life should be." I think we both healed, or at least learned to breathe, in that moment. Kids? No. Not planning any. We are at peace with that, and the pressure, biological, societal, familial, has just vanished. I realized the biggest hurdle was thinking family had to match some pre-existing script. It does not. I am not just a wife, nor a stepmother, I am family, period. To everyone who doubted it was possible or called me names before, I understand where you came from, and I hope you'll allow that women can, and do, decide to live unconventionally happy lives. I'm exhausted, in love, and finally myself. This life is wildly different from what I imagined at 25 or 30, and better, for all its craziness. Thank you for letting me process it here, even if this is probably my last update ever. If you're reading, on the fence about a big leap, and wondering if it's possible to build a family your own way, trust yourself, be kind, and don't let someone else's predictions trap you in what-ifs. If I hadn't given the unpredictable a chance, I'd have missed out on the real that I never even knew to want. Update 4, I absolutely believe the prior update would be my last, and for real, I'd planned never to log back in. But then life happened, at warp speed, and after months of waking up pinching myself at how weirdly wonderful things became, I felt compelled to share what has unfolded, not just for closure or vindication, but because sometimes you truly can't imagine what's possible until you live through it. If you thought previous updates were a roller coaster, you haven't heard this one. First, the twins. Things with the new care agency kept getting better. We found ourselves thrown into what I can only call the golden era of our household: stability, laughter, a strange but peaceful sense of routine. M started learning basic coding, with admittedly way more patience from his teacher than I have ever possessed, and F wanted to train a therapy dog, which became a small sensation among our neighbors. It turns out, if you have patience, energy, and, yes, the right resources, it's not just survival, you can thrive. There were Friday night movie rituals, Slurpee runs, constant requests for just one more riddle at bedtime. A good kind of chaos. Then things took a sharp right turn. Around Thanksgiving, F fell ill with a pretty minor bug, or so we thought. Her fever persisted, she got listless, and the doctors found she'd developed a dangerous electrolyte imbalance likely due to a genetic quirk no one had previously flagged. I will spare the gory medical details, but what followed was 2 weeks of ICU, rotating emergency meetings with specialists, and a marathon of waiting rooms and whispered phone calls. During this time, I found myself taking shifts not just with my husband, but with M. At my side. He insisted on overnight hospital vigils with us. He brought his favorite comic books to read to his twin, who was too out of it to respond, and asked me every morning, "Did you get any sleep?" I never, ever expected the day would come where this reticent, wry young man, who once barely looked me in the eyes, now hung on to me, and let me hang on to him. That crisis felt, absurdly, like the final crossing. I am not on the outside anymore. I am theirs, and they are mine. As for F, she rallied. The doctor called it the bounce back of the decade. She lost weight and was weak for a while, but true to her stubborn ways, she insisted on drawing a cartoon for every nurse and doctor she could remember the name of. By the end of her stay, the ICU ward was papered with her art. One features me and her brother as superheroes. She drew herself as the indestructible. Somehow, that encapsulates everything about these kids. Their capacity to bounce, and keep loving, is bottomless. If the last few years taught us anything, it's to not put anything on hold for later. So when F got out, we finally did the one thing I always held in the back of my mind as maybe someday. We traveled. Not the let's haul the crew to Disneyland kind, logistics and health are still realities, but we arranged with the care team, who stunned us by agreeing and coming along, to spend 2 weeks on the coast, at a fully accessible retreat run by parents of medically complex kids. I wish I could bottle those mornings, watching my husband teach the twins how to hunt for shells, seeing M and F try kayaking, safely tethered, of course, evenings around a fire pit with other families who instantly understood both the gravity and joy in our lives. For the first time, it all came together, our family, the twins' resilience and humor, my husband's newfound ability to let go, even for an hour or two. We made friends. I did some readings for my now published book. I had little kids asking if I was F's sister, which, for my vanity, was a highlight. The best part? My husband, usually so on edge in new environments, genuinely relaxed. He and I stole mornings on the porch just to be together. I don't know if we'll ever be normal, but we laughed so much and so hard it almost hurt. And then, because real life never stays simple, M expressed, for the first time, an interest in independence. Not leaving home for good, but a taste of college-level learning, even if remote. We connected with a program specializing in neurodivergent adults, and after a, frankly heroic, effort from counselors, he started auditing courses online, philosophy, digital art, and environmental science. He wakes up early for lectures. He started dressing more independently, experimenting with wilder color combos than I could have dreamed. F, not to be left out, asked to join a book club for young women with disabilities. She has friends now, real, text-all-day friends. Watching these two grow, after years of being treated as fragile or less than, has cracked my heart open. Their trajectories might not be typical, and won't be fully independent, but the joy, pride, and sometimes riotous overconfidence they show. All I can say is, never underestimate what supported, fiercely loved kids can do. As for my marriage, I have discovered, finally, what a true partnership means. Not the fairytale kind, not the easy soulmates trope, but two people who see each other's lowest, truest selves and refuse to let them go. We have regular conflicts, but we also have 100 tiny, daily triumphs. When F was sick, my husband slept upright for 8 nights in a broken recliner. I learned how to swaddle her arms with cold packs and comfort M. When he worried himself sick. We have started talking openly with friends about everything. The mess, the growth, the ways our lives, while complicated, are so much more rewarding than we ever thought possible. Here's the twist ending I never, ever saw coming. Adoption. Not a baby. Not more kids, but the twins, because we realized, after the scare, that we never formally adopted them as adults. My husband, their legal guardian, but not legally dad. Me, just stepmom in practice. After F got home, the twins both asked, on their own, can you be our parents for real? Like, on paper? I cried for 20 minutes. We started the process. At the courthouse, F presented the judge with a collage of our family. She put me and my husband front and center. M gave a tiny speech, his first public speaking ever, about how family is who shows up, and who fights for you. The judge granted our petition on the spot. The legal formality didn't change day-to-day love, but it mattered deeply to all of us. On my end, life has turned into something I never pictured for myself. My book was picked up by a small press after the disability rights event last year, and now I'm working on a second, on sibling bonds and non-traditional family. The kids' stories, told with their help, are reaching more people than I thought possible. I've gotten invitations to schools and even to a podcast on blended family life. There are bumps, always, moments of exhaustion and self-doubt, days when my old fears creep in. Did I give up too much from my old life? But they don't last. The joy of watching these two young people, who were always supposed to be lost, overlooked, left behind, carve out more for themselves, and to have a husband who truly meets me at my best and worst. I never dreamed this would be my family, but I would not trade it for what might have been. There is space, surprisingly, for my creativity, for advocacy, for being more than caretaker. I have a voice. So, to close, for real this time, I want to say, love redraws lines and expectations. If you let go, sometimes it delivers you exactly where you were supposed to be. I wish I could tell my old, angry, lost self how much better it can all get. And to anyone, anywhere, standing in the mess wondering, what if I just stay and grow instead of run? Don't discount the wild, beautiful plot twists.